Who was arrested in the gold wave? All those who, at one time or another, 15 years before, had had a private business, had been involved in retail trade, had earned wages at a craft, and could have, according to the GPU's deductions, hoarded gold. But it so happened that they often had no gold. If you, in fact, had no gold, then your situation was hopeless. You would be beaten, burned, tortured, and steamed to the point of death, or until they finally came to believe you. But if you had gold, you could determine the extent of your torture, the limits of your endurance, and your own fate. Psychologically, this situation was, incidentally, not easier, but more difficult, because if you made an error, you would always be ridden by a guilty conscience. Of course, anyone who had already mastered the rules of the institution would yield and give up his gold. That was easier. But it was a mistake to give it up too readily. They would refuse to believe you had coughed it all up, and they would continue to hold you. But you'd be wrong, too, to wait too long before yielding. You'd end up kicking the bucket, or they'd paste a term on you out of meanness. One of the Tartar draymen endured all the tortures. He had no gold. They imprisoned his wife, too, and tortured her. But the Tartar stuck to his story. No gold. Then they arrested his daughter. The Tartar couldn't take it anymore. He coughed up 100,000 rubles. At this point, they let his family go, but slapped a prison term on him. The crudest detective stories and operas about brigands were played out in real life on a vast national scale.
Hey, you want to get high, man?
Let's stimulate your mind.
Get up, Chucky! What have we got here? A fucking comedian.
Rogin, Kim?
California dreaming.
Okay, well, that was a reading from the Gulag Archipelago. That was a little portion about how Stalin decided to start arresting people who he thought had gold, and would just arrest them and would torture them and beat them for no reason. There's no crime except for the fact that they might have gold, and that if they were holding out, gold against the state. That was an ultimate crime. And they went for, so they didn't actually technically go to prison. They were just like held in camps until they coughed up gold, and then they were let go, or they were tortured, and sometimes they'd be sent to prison after that. So that's not even the Gulag Archipelago, of which the book is named after. That's just a little pre-Gulag. I'm still in chapter 2, for God's sake. I'll read 3 paragraphs and fall asleep. It's a very potent sleep aid, though, I would say. One thing about it's this goddamn Jordan Peterson. He's got me reading these nonfiction Russian books. Jordan Peterson, I like the guy. Am I just following the trends? I don't know. I've listened to him. I listened to the thing. Have you heard of him, Jordan Peterson? I feel like the two of you out there probably have. And if you haven't, they're just Google Jordan Peterson, Cathy Newman. This is an interview that he did in England that went viral. That I have here's a little excerpt from it.
The reason that I write about lobsters is because there's this idea that hierarchical structures are a sociological construct of the Western patriarchy. And that is so untrue that it's almost unbelievable. And I use the lobster as an example because the lobster, we divulged from lobsters in evolutionary history about 350 million years ago, common ancestor. And lobsters exist in hierarchies, and they have a nervous system attuned to the hierarchy. And that nervous system runs on serotonin, just like our nervous systems do. And the nervous system of the lobster and the human being is so similar that antidepressants work on lobsters. And it's part of my attempt to demonstrate that the idea of hierarchy has absolutely nothing to do with sociocultural construction, which it doesn't.
Let me just get this straight. You're saying that we should organize our societies along the lines of the lobsters.
Lobsters. Are you saying, is that what you're, so then that became a meme, are you saying, if you go to Cathy Newman's Twitter feed, it's awesome. It's a lot of people saying, are you saying, so what you're saying is that, and then they'll say something absolutely preposterous. But, I think it's really interesting, this idea that, our nervous systems are similar to lobsters. We diverged before trees were even around. I mean, we share the same mechanism as these so-called primitive creatures or whatever, right? So it counts for something, and they have hierarchy. The whole point he's saying is that there's some kind of hierarchy, perhaps that's built into our biological architecture, right? It's not even the idea that biology is a construct of Western civilization, perhaps is not a good narrative to pursue, or the right narrative. I don't think he's not really making a judgment about it itself. The judgment is that it's wrong, so therefore it's not right. We shouldn't be wholeheartedly pursuing things that have no scientific basis because of ideology, right? Because that seems to be disastrous. I don't know, that seemed to lead to disaster. Well, that was one of the big points that he made, was that the ideology underlying things like coercing people to use non-binary gender pronouns, or any sort of coercion of speech, right, by the law, by the state, whatever, that is a dangerous philosophy, because it's all about saying that the individual is nothing compared to the group, right? Like, individual freedoms no longer matter as long as we protect a group. When it comes to something like the N-word, it gets touchy, right? It's touchy. But is that the right way to deal with it? I mean, it does seem like, it's tyranny to stop people from saying things in a country that's based on freedom of speech. The First Amendment to the Constitution is the freedom of speech, and we should be allowed to do it. So I'd like to talk about lobsters. What is a lobster? I mean, a lobster is a crustacean. It lives at the bottom of the sea. It's delicious. But did you know that it wasn't always delicious? I mean, it's always been delicious, but did you know that it was not always a delicacy, like a prized? It used to be considered poor people food. Like people just be eating lobsters in New England left and right. They're just you wouldn't want to eat that. It's like, well, I don't know what would you consider poor people to eat now? Garbage, or McDonald's, or I don't know. Is that the same thing? Or what do you think of when the poors eat? What do they eat? I mean, what am I eating? I'll eat Subway. Is that sometimes is that a poor? Whatever. Listen, back then it was different. Okay, we didn't have fast food and mass like industrialization of agriculture and food transportation. Okay, so people ate lobsters where there were plenty of lobsters, and there were shitloads of them because nobody wanted them. Until one day, some crafty New Yorker decided, yeah, I like lobster, man, and started putting the word out that lobster is the shit. Lobster is great. Other rich guys are like, oh, I got to eat it too. And soon rich people are ordering lobster, left and lobster. The price of lobster skyrocketed. And soon all the people who ate lobster didn't have any lobster anymore because they couldn't afford it. They were too poor to afford the food that was once too plentiful because it was considered food for them. But once it became food for the rich, they bought up the lobsters. Lobsters skyrocketed in price. And here we are today, where lobsters are more expensive than crab. And I actually, frankly, like crab better. I think crab is more tasty. But anyway, back to the lobster. The lobster also is one of the few animals that might actually live forever, be immortal. They speculate that there are lobsters that are perhaps thousands of years old at the bottom of the ocean floor. We don't know. They just get bigger and bigger. They stop growing. They don't seem to die in the same way that everything else does. So, and lobsters somehow know the amount of space that they have. So if you put them in a tank, they'll stay small. But if you give them more space, they'll start to grow bigger. And so if they had the entire ocean at their disposal, and they just crawl around on the floor, and they're just getting bigger and bigger. I mean, at some point, I guess they would get too big and not be able to sustain themselves, because that's what they say about, like, you know how, like, if you go back in time, not if you go, you know how like when you go back in time, no, you know how like when you watch shows about people who go back in time, or whatever, there's giant bugs, or you know, dinosaur books or whatever, there's giant bugs, prehistoric insects used to be giant. Are you with me? All right. A lot of people say that, you know, if you got them, if you like monster movies, you know, monster movies kind of took that idea, made those bugs even bigger, you know, and people say that's not scientifically feasible because of the surface area of the bug is not enough to sustain it. I think the like bugs breathe through their whole body, and also the way they're designed structurally, it's not to support that much weight, so it wouldn't even be able to move around. So it'd have a different shape altogether if you had a giant bug. Anyways, what the fuck am I talking about? Lobsters. Just like you ever talk about how giant lobsters can get. Would they be able to sustain themselves, right? And if one came ashore, like this giant, imagine this giant fucking lobster out of a Godzilla movie just came ashore. And imagine people would freak the fuck out, right? But also, how delicious would it be after killing the lobster? If we could kill the thing, I feel like a lobster, once it got on the land, it's kind of done for, right? Like we could just cook it with stuff. We just shoot fire onto it, you know, just cook and then we'd eat it. Everything comes down to just us eating stuff. That's what we should do if giant monsters come out of the sea. We should just eat them. Just have butter ready, a lot of butter and lemon. We'll just eat these fuckers, man. They're not going to eat us. We're going to eat them. That's what we do. So, yeah, lobsters. You ever see the movie The Lobster? There is this movie. It had Colin Farrell in it, which was a strike against it usually, but he did okay. It was this guy, I don't know, Yorgo something. He's a Greek director. Pretty cool dude. He did Dogtooth. I haven't seen it. I like The Lobster. It was really weird. It's a movie about it's like a strange near future where you have like a year to find a mate or else they'll turn you into an animal, and Colin Farrell's character picks a lobster because it'll live forever or something. But then the other thing about lobsters, I guess according to the show Friends, is I guess they're designed to be together for life. Like, are they monogamous? Lobsters are monogamous? That's really terrible, though. Imagine you're a lobster and you're monogamous, and then you fall in love with your mate for life, and you're like, we're going to live forever. We live forever. And then, you know, he or she gets captured, and then you have to, like, live forever without your life mate. It's fucked up, man. Maybe that's why they're so delicious, because of the longing. You know, maybe there's something about that. Absence makes the flesh taste sweeter. I don't know, something like that. I don't know. So I maybe open a lobster chain. I don't know. Anyway, Friends, lobster, like Ross and Rachel are supposed to be each other's lobster. All right. Let's move on. Consider The Lobster. David Foster Wallace. Never read it, but I know it's a book. It's a book. It has something to do with lobsters. So the Red Lobster has great cheese biscuits. I'm on a roll. Cheese biscuits. Okay. Oh, so I saw this thing online, because I don't watch TV anymore. But I watched this thing online, or watched this thing. I saw that somebody was mad. Some Asian person was mad that Will Ferrell I guess he was hosting Saturday Night Live, and one of the pictures that they use, you know, those little pictures in between the commercials, and it's usually like the host doing something, looking crazy or whatever. It was Will Ferrell posing with this Asian family, which is something that he does. He's done it before. He's posed with different Asian families, and it's just, it's funny. It's hilarious, isn't it? It's just Will Ferrell. He's posing with an Asian. That's so funny. It's so random. It's funny. Asian is funny. I mean, if you had an Asian guy, if I pose with a white family, is that funny? That could be funny. Is it just funny because one person is different? Is that what's funny about it? Is it funny because of the other people or the one person? Like, is it funny because of the difference? Is it funny because it's Asian specifically? Like, if they're black people or anybody else, it would not be funny. Or maybe you just can't do that because those people get too mad. And they're like, yeah, but Asians, fuck them, right? Fuck Asian. Well, Asians don't have the numbers, maybe, yet. They're still, you know, a minority compared to black people. I think black people are at 12% or something, and Asian people are like 3 or 4 something, which, you know, it's a fair bit, but it's not, what, 4%. Yeah, it's that's a minority. There's not a lot of Asians. So fuck them. They don't have the dollars. They don't have the numbers. I mean, eventually they're starting to. They have a bunch of them are gone through college. A bunch of them are well educated, whatever, you know, a bunch of them are mad, angry. People like the one who posted this picture and was so mad. And I mean, I said it's 2018 and Asians are still sweet visual gag. And in some ways I wasn't being like upset. I was just stating it like it's a sweet visual. That's what I rely on. That's when I go on stage. hoping it doesn't count against me. I heard this thing about, you know, for stand-up, some people, they feel like, okay, men automatically have like an advantage over women in general, and then racially it breaks down like, so the white man is, let's say, neutral, with a 0 neutral position, right? But a black man is, say, a +2, right? A white woman is like a -1. So I don't know, an Asian guy maybe is like white woman, or Asian guy. I don't know. I don't really go up there being like, I'm an Asian guy, so I don't really know. I also feel like I'm probably not a typical person, so I can't be the judge of any of this. I don't know if any of this is actually true, but I guess this is what comedians have talked about, not to me personally, but on podcasts. So it's kind of like it was to me and a bunch of other people, but, you know, so maybe you can relate. Anyway, who cares? Nobody cares about Will Ferrell, the Asian family. I mean, sure. Is it hacky? Is it hack? Hack. What are we calling hack here? Hack meaning, is it easy? Hack meaning, are you doing it for the money? Are you doing it? Are you pandering? Are you doing it? Do you really? I feel like he's not doing it out of hate. He's not like, fuck Asian. He's just like, it's funny. Asian people, they are funny. The Asian people are funny. They sound funny. They talk funny. It's okay. They eat funny things. It's funny. It's funny. It's fine. It's fun. Look, it's a Western focused thing. I mean, I guess to an Asian, like a real Asian from Asia, like a Chinese person, you'd be like, that's not funny. That's not funny. You know, that's not fun. But wouldn't they think it was funny if they had like a white family, and they'd be like, oh, that's hilarious, or hilarious, right? Whatever. That's what they would, because it's just cultural point of view. There's nothing wrong with it. It's fine. I say make the funny Asian noises. Make them. Don't be scared. Why should we live in this tyranny? Why should we live in this tyranny where we can't make funny noises? Just an observation. I mean, should we tease people and bully them? No, but has it happened to me? Yeah, and look at me. I'm not like, I wish it never happened. I'm glad it happened, because it's really, frankly, it gets boring after a while. Nobody's that original. You know, it's all the same. Ching chong, hong hong hong. Do you like noodles? I've heard it all. It's not if I find a good impressive one, then I give him kudos. I say kudos to you, sir, or ma'am. Sometimes it is a ma'am. I say kudos because you deserve it. We're all in pursuit, not all of us, but I and the other comedians are in pursuit of funny shit, and it's funny, you know, and it's not, I don't know, it's not coming out of a place of malice. Okay, Alice. So smoke on that chalice. All right, weird. It's a weird thing to say. All right. I wanted to. Pardon me. You know, I got to thinking. Clean water is like a new thing. It hasn't been that long since. We, meaning what? Just civilization, West, people in countries had like running water pipes, and then chlorinated that water, you know, like fucking decontaminated, and had clean water to drink. That's still rare. potable water, right? It's actually a luxury in the United States, and we flush a gallon of it down the toilet every time we go. We don't give a fuck. So anyway, back in the day, water wasn't safe, so you wouldn't really drink a lot of water. It was actually like you're better off not drinking it because you get sick. So people drank beer and wine, like just low grade, nothing like crazy, but all day, because it makes you a little thirsty, right? You drink a little, it makes you a little thirsty, drink some more. But with the alcohol, whatever, was cleaner, it was less contaminated than the water was, so you were better off drinking that stuff. So that means everybody used to be drunk, right? Like not like wasted, but low grade, like a buzz. Everybody had like a nice buzz going, right? Everybody, this is just like, it's fine. So and anything you could think of in history, like when they like Jesus, putting Jesus on the cross, right? When everybody had a little buzz going. They were watching him. They were whipping everybody's buzz. They drinking a little brew, just buzzing and whipping Christ. Anything. When Lincoln was shot, and everybody was the actors in the play. My cousin Tom, or whatever the fuck, they were all drunk. They're drunk. Lincoln was a little drunk, right? Everybody in the booth was drunk. They probably that's why I didn't see John Wilkes Booth, was also probably a little drunk and blasted him, and that's why he like broke his leg falling. Everybody was like just a little toasted. I wonder. I don't know if were things better then. Is that better? Is that better than now when we have clean water, but we're all so sober all the time? Maybe we're not really, but low grade drunk like all the time, right? Or does it all equal out? Is that just a great equalizer? Right? Like if everybody's drunk, maybe nobody's drunk, right? What is it? Like what is drunk? Drunk is, that's like another level. That's like you can't move. That's drunk. Besides that, if you can move, you're fucking functioning. You get back to work if you can move, right? I wonder if things were more chill, like people had less intrusive thoughts. It was like less depression, less anxiety with all the low grade. Because I know alcohol is supposed to be bad for depression and anxiety over the long term. It's probably not the best, especially since there is no concept of mental health. But if everybody had a little bit of it going on all the time, I don't know, maybe things were just kind of fast and loose. Maybe that's why they came up with the jitterbug and jazz and stuff. I don't know, maybe that's why there's innovations and whatnot. I'm not sure if there's something there. Like everybody knows, but everything in any historical thing, Napoleon crossing the Waterloo or whatever, he was drunk. George Washington crossing the Delaware, drunk. All those crossings, they're all drunk. They had to be, because the shit was cold. They drink it, stay warm. That's the other added benefit. Drinking a little booze, you feel warm. Because shit was cold back then. There was no fucking microfiber fleeces and shit. There was none of that shit. Cold as fuck. People were just fucking tired of it. They didn't know anything. They just knew that you drink the water, you get sick. You fucking drink the booze, things are okay. Now let's go make history. Okay. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for listening to the Rogin Kimcast. All the stuff. Follow me everywhere on the Twitters. I might quit Facebook, man. I might go to I don't know. Follow, just subscribe to this. Just keep listening to this. Yeah, and look out for other things. I'll be coming up with some stuff soon. Sure, I will. All right, guys. Thanks so much for listening.